I'm Crystal Froese, host of Paths to Prosperity podcast with the Saskatchewan Economic Development Alliance. This is where we talk about what it really takes to build strong communities and a stronger Saskatchewan. The real work behind the scenes, the people, the systems, the good ideas that turn good intentions into real outcomes. You know, for a long time in Saskatchewan, when we talked about economic development, we meant building things. Highways, rail lines, water systems, industrial parks, processing plants. The growth was visible. You could point to it. You could measure it in steel and concrete and capital dollars. And don't get me wrong, that infrastructure still matters. But it's not what's holding us back anymore. What we're running into now across Saskatchewan is something less visible, but far more limiting. It's capacity. It's the leadership depth, the governance models, and the human systems that actually turn opportunity into outcomes. Especially in a province like ours, where geography is vast and our teams are small, and responsibilities overlap across multiple levels of government. In many of our communities, one person isn't doing just one job. They're the CAO, the Economic Development Officer, the planner, the grant writer, the crisis manager, all at once. So capacity, it's not a nice to have anymore. It's core infrastructure. And let's be clear about something. Saskatchewan does not lack ideas. We have strategies, we have regional plans and sector priorities. We have government programs aimed at investment readiness, workforce, housing, reconciliation, innovation, you name it. The intent is there. But what's missing far too often is a system capacity to actually deliver consistently over time. Projects don't stall because people don't care. They stall because the same small group of people are stretched across too many initiatives. Governance structures are siloed by mandate instead of aligned to the outcomes. And the leadership transitions are breaking momentum, and regional collaboration is depending on relationships, not systems. And this isn't a criticism. It's the structural reality of Saskatchewan. Small populations, long distances, layered responsibilities across municipal, Indigenous, regional, provincial, and federal systems. And from an economic perspective, this is a capacity problem, not a commitment problem. In practice, economic development here doesn't run on organizations. It runs on people. A handful of leaders that often carry the regional collaboration, the investor confidence, intergovernmental relationships, as well as project memory. And when those leaders leave or burn out, the work doesn't just slow down, it completely resets. Now, high-capacity regions, they operate differently. The leadership is distributed. It's not dependent on one mayor, one director, or one champion. And that matters because in Saskatchewan, success depends on working across these boundaries. The municipal and regional governments, our First Nations, Métis communities, and urban centers, our crown agencies, and industry and community organization. Leadership capacity isn't about individual excellence. It's about having enough connected leaders who can move across those boundaries without constantly renegotiating trust, authority, and purpose. And that's infrastructure, whether we call it that or not. A lot of our governance systems were built for stability, for risk management, and they do that well. But today's challenges, they don't fit neatly into those boxes. Workforce doesn't belong to one jurisdiction, and housing impacts the investment readiness, and reconciliation is shaping access to land, labor, and capital. And innovation requires speed, something traditional processes struggle with. And yet, our systems are still fragmented with decision-making and the slow delivery through the unclear authority, and we're rewarding compliance over coordination. And so what do we get? Well, it's not failure, but it is friction. But here's the good news. Some of the most promising work in Saskatchewan is happening where governance has been adapted. Not thrown out, adapted. Shared tables with clear decision rights, and backbone organizations that are coordinating without controlling. Regional approaches that are respecting local autonomy while pooling their capacity. And these aren't luxuries, these are necessities, because in Saskatchewan, scale doesn't come from our population. It comes from cooperation. And this insight really brings it home from Jackie Wall, our manager of special programs at SEDA. She puts, "We've been working with over 300 communities across Saskatchewan through the Investment Readiness Initiative. What we've learned is that while every community is unique, many are facing similar challenges and opportunities." And if there's one place where this becomes real, it's in our human systems, because no province feels this more than Saskatchewan. We're dealing with thin staffing, high turnover, and succession gaps, and the result? Plans are outlasting the people assigned to deliver them. And the learning is getting lost between funding cycles. And these new initiatives are starting before even the old ones are fully embedded. And meanwhile, expectations keep rising. Communities are still expected to be investment ready, to be data driven, inclusive, climate aware, to continue to be innovative and collaborative. And often without the investment in people and systems needed to actually do all of that well. And this quote says it plainly. As rural development specialist Lindsay Alaban has says, people assume small communities lack ambition. That's not true. What we lack is spare capacity, leadership depth, shared systems, and enough hands to carry the work. When we treat capacity like overhead instead of infrastructure, the system compensates with heroics. And heroics work until they don't. And then we see the inefficiency for what it really is. As Nick Daigneault, CEO of Beauval Development, has said, he speaks directly to this reality. Our communities don't struggle because of a lack of vision or drive. We struggle because too many systems are designed for places with larger teams, closer offices to Regina, and more administrative depth than we are ever likely to have. So if we're serious about long-term growth, especially outside major centers, we need to rethink what ready actually means. It's not just about shovel-ready projects anymore. Readiness looks like leadership depth that survives that turnover, governance models that are enabling regional delivery, clear roles, authority, and accountability, and the time and space to think and learn and to collaborate. And the communities that have those things, well, they can absorb that investment and they can deliver the programs. They can sustain momentum even when funding changes. And that's why capacity isn't optional anymore. It's foundational. And this quote captures it perfectly. Brenda Hirchmer has said, in rural Saskatchewan, success depends less on having the perfect plan and more on having enough leadership depth, shared systems, and decision-making space to keep moving when priorities collide and people change roles. That's human infrastructure, and it's long overdue for serious investment. Saskatchewan has always understood long-term investment. We've built railways before the markets were guaranteed. We extended services where the return wasn't just financial, it was social. Capacity deserves that same mindset because leadership development, governance innovation, human systems, they're not supports to the work, they are the work. And the real question now isn't, can we afford to invest in capacity? It's, can we afford not to? And this final thought brings it full circle. Tammy McDonald from Town of Esterhazy, she's a CAO, sums it up this way. Infrastructure used to mean roads and buildings. Now, for us, infrastructure is having enough people, leadership continuity, and decision-making space to actually get things done. So if this resonated with you, pause for a moment and think about your work. Where is your capacity connection point? Maybe it's strengthening leadership beyond one or two people. Maybe it's redesigning how those decisions get made. Or especially capturing that knowledge before it walks out the door. And investing in human systems that actually make things happen. And it all can start right there. If you believe Saskatchewan's future depends on more than projects and funding, if it depends on leadership, governance, and human systems that actually deliver, we invite you to stay connected. Listen to the companion podcast episode, Capacity is a New Capital, featuring Brenda Hirchmer. And subscribe to Path to Prosperity for our monthly thought leadership and conversations. And please share this piece with a leader or practitioner who's carrying too much and shouldn't be carrying it alone. Together, we can build the capacity that turns opportunity into outcomes. I'm Crystal Froese, and thank you for listening today.